I'm now giving the floor to our longtime sponsor and very close member, the president of Open Doors, who is also a director of the chamber and will be moderating this innovation panel. The one and only Mr. Lane Sharman, take the spotlight.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to introduce, well, first of all, I just want to briefly thank everyone who's participated in this conference. It's been just remarkably inspiring. I feel like we've all had a chance to connect with great people. I want to point out that Emil was a Swedish intern a year ago and has now become an employee, a valued employee of Open Doors. And this just goes to show what these kinds of conferences can do, is that they can bring people together and show their talent and create great green connections, if I may use the pun. So with that, I just want to welcome the following panelists. First, I want to welcome Karen Ebbinghaus. I hope I'm pronouncing your name, Ebbinghaus, from Elon Road. We've learned a little bit about Elon Road already. Fascinating technology, fascinating innovation. I'd like to welcome Tia Gordon from It's Electric. We are so excited about It's Electric here in San Diego. We can't wait till the conference ends and reach out and get a program underway here in San Diego. And then lastly, who you just learned about, we're through ION. We're going to have the founder of ION, Hans Christian Schultz. And what I'm going to ask each of the panelists to start off with, starting with Karen, is how did the forces of finance policy, people, and technology, how do those forces influence your successful innovation as a company founder and leader? So I'd like to start off with you, Karen, on that question.
Sure, and thank you so much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Karen. I'm from Elon Road, and we have nothing to do with Elon Musk. Just want to emphasize that. The Swedish word for electricity is just el. So we are what we call electricity on road. And I would say that this company was really, created and formed by our founder, Dan's desire, I would say, to drive fully, sustainable and have as little resources as possible. And he was buying an electrical vehicle 12, 13 years ago. It was a small Nissan Leaf. And in wintertime in Sweden, he couldn't drive with the heat on because then the range would be too small. So he was driving in this little car with his jacket on. And he's a very creative person. And at the time, his children were small, so he was playing with Galactic Car Track. I'm not sure if you know those slot race cars. And his mind came up with this idea of what if there was a live or a real size, toy car track here, and then I could drive with infinite range and still have very small batteries. And I could have the heat on or the air conditioning, it wouldn't affect me. So I think sometimes, these ideas, these really, really crazy ideas, really comes from a personal experience. So that was the start. But this company wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't that we had won a big tender in Sweden. I think you learned more about that. One of the pilots to try and test and demonstrate how this would work in a real life environment. And I would say with the support of the Swedish Traffic Authority, we able to enabled us to build our first prototype, which was fantastic. So for us, it's technology, but it's also policy and regulation and financing that needs it's so closely intertwined to make innovation happen.
Great. I couldn't agree with you more on that. It's the interweaving of all of that. Tia, we're very blessed to have you here with us. We're so excited to have learned about you and your technology. It's electric, and so we'd like to have you comment a little bit about that question and give us a little bit of background also on where you are on your journey across the United States with your really just radically impressive EV technology.
Thank you so much, Lane. It's a pleasure to be here. If possible, I'd love to have the ability to share my screen, and then we
Yes,
can dive in.
I'd be happy to do that. Sure, sure. I'm going to stop sharing and let you share your screen. By all means, go ahead.
And I appreciate all of the sentiments that have come across from the other panelists today, and I'm going to follow the prompt that I was given to talk about how does finance and policy and people and tech all interact.
Yeah.
And I was also asked to comment, if I choose so, on the impacts of the upcoming administration change here in the United States. And so I want to kind of lead with that as opposed to leaving it to the end, because I think it's really important that we talk about these things head on. We have a series of conflicting statements around electrification that are going to be happening on a daily basis. And for me, we now officially know that, for example, the new administration is canceling the EV tax credit here in the United States, making things insurmountably harder for this transition for Americans to move towards clean energy. So for me personally, and my views are my own, I don't view an administration that is hostile towards the idea of the climate crisis anything more than honestly a specter or a gray ghost of fossil fuels. And this is delaying progress for this entire country. So I don't feel like the country is not going to go towards a clean energy future, but we're now significantly going to be facing a delay on that progress. So I think it's up to independent, privately owned companies to have to step in. And unfortunately, innovation can also be a cure where there's perhaps a lack of funding that was previously relied upon. We have to be more innovative, we have to be more ambitious in how we're going to actually find solutions that move forward. So very quickly, It's Electric is here to solve the problem of electric vehicle charging for people who don't have a home garage. It's really easy to charge an EV if you have a garage you can pull into at the end of the day. 85% of Americans who drive an EV, that's how they currently charge. They go home, they plug in, they wake up, they have a full battery. But if you live in a city, it's a lot harder. And so we know that to meet mandates, that we need around 1 million public level 2 chargers in the next 5 years. And there's good news about this. The good news is that of the overall number of chargers we need, the majority that our current Department of Energy, our current White House have pushed us towards is that the majority of these that are public, 1 million of these are public, are going to be level 2. So that's like that standard power. It's not the fast charger, and allows for these to basically be deployed with speed and with scale. The other good news is that people need to understand this idea of range anxiety can be alleviated once you have that access. So we like to say that it's not so much range anxiety these days, as Karen pointed out, in terms of driving, and having to reduce your heat to expand your range. But in cities where things are really dense, you're not driving more than around 30 or 40 miles a week. And so the Department of Energy actually put out this great stat that a driver that's parked and charged on a level 2 charger for 1 hour gets more charge than they drive an entire week. So again, we have the technology, we have the battery capacity. At this point, it's just a question of giving access to drivers to be able to charge, which can help overcome this final barrier of how am I going to charge my vehicle. And so what we want to do in this country is not only provide this infrastructure, but we want to help people adapt to this new way of quote unquote fueling their vehicles. And this is a question sometimes not of technology or of infrastructure, but of behavior change. So when you're trying to influence behavior change, you want to keep in mind 2 principles. One, you want to mimic a previous behavior that the user is really familiar with. And 2, you want to make that behavior better, easier, more convenient, more affordable than before to help really resonate and help it drive that behavior mechanism home and lock it in. So let's map that to EV charging. Right now in the United States, what we're trying to do is to mimic the experience of a gas station and to try and make that better. But it's actually the wrong behavior that we're trying to mimic. What we want to do is the same exact habit that we all have right now. At the end of the day, when we go home, we plug in our phones and we wake up and we have a full battery. So what we're trying to do is create that, so I have background noise, create that same behavior. One moment. Apologies, I'm at a conference. And you're going home and you're plugging in your vehicle and you're waking up to that full battery. So again, better, easier, more convenient than what you happened before. You never have to go to a gas station. You can fuel right at home, right on your block. And so It's Electric is the world's first public curbside charging system that's powered by buildings. So what we do is we overcome what we consider to be the primary barrier for the deployment of public charging infrastructure, because we never have to do any utility coordination. Every other public charging company right now, when they put a public charger in a public space, again, not on private lots, they have to make an inter-utility connection with that utility that owns that jurisdiction. And this means you have to basically trench about 7 to 10 feet below grade, connect to high voltage, put in transformers, and then power that hardware. This is very time consuming, this is very expensive. We avoid all of this because what we do is power our chargers using power that's already there, directly from an adjacent building. We run a very short conduit from that building, just below the sidewalk, to our public charger on curbside. We have a sub-meter, a direct meter in that building, so that building's energy costs never go up. But instead, what we do is we revenue share back to them. So these are public chargers, they sit on curbside. They're powered from the building that's right next to it. Drivers pull up, they charge. It's Electric collects the revenue and then shares that revenue with that building. And we are typology agnostic. This is residential, this is commercial, this is public, this is private, any building type. So what this does is this brings not only infrastructure into neighborhoods, but economic benefit for people that were previously reticent for this technology in terms of NIMBY attitude. And because we are avoiding these very high costs that often come with utility, we can afford to do this for free. We're free to our cities and our city partners that we work with. We're free to our buildings. And again, we revenue share back with them. We like to say we're not deep tech, we're shallow tech, about 4 inches. It's a very simple idea. It's one that's right in front of us. And we're really excited to have had the momentum that we've had in the about 2 years that we've existed from concept to where we are today. We're also the only company in the United States that offers a detachable cable. This is really important because the cable is the first component that breaks on a public charger or is opportunistically vandalized, meaning it gets cut off and people sell that cable for copper. So we like to say it's not weird, just European. This is the way that it happens across the EU, the UK, the Nordics, and we are the first company to have that UL certification, or those UL standards and certifications, to bring this technology to the US. So the driver keeps the cable in their trunk of their car. We distribute the cables to drivers for free. And so they're able to basically plug this neighborhood charger on their block in their neighborhood within a quarter-mile walk shed of their home or their apartment, and always have that reliable infrastructure there for them. The benefit also is that we keep the streets and the cities and the blocks that we love looking beautiful. We remove any kind of gas pump style charger from a residential context. And the funnest part of it all, and the part that I enjoy the most, is that we're community requested. So here's an example of work that we're doing here on the West Coast. We're working in Alameda, California, and you can see this figure up here on the left. That's the existing public charger infrastructure in Alameda. The figure on the lower left is where they thought public chargers needed to go. And the figure on the right is when we put out just one note. The city actually put out a note on their Facebook page saying, "It's Electric is coming to Alameda. Sign up here if you want a charger on your block." And this is the response we got in about 24 hours. So we know that this infrastructure is needed. We know that when people have a reliable and convenient charging source very close to where they are going and parking their cars at night before they go home and go to bed, that we can help scale our infrastructure across this country quite easily. So we're actually working in 8 cities across the US. We would love to come to San Diego. We're very excited about the benefits and the leadership that the state is showing, especially amidst the political chaos that we're facing. And I'm at a transportation conference today, and the messaging that is being underscored is that we're back to a position where it's states and it's cities that are leading these mandates, and we're going to do this on our own without federal support. So please send me a note. I'd love to tell you more, and I'm grateful for your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic, Tia. And I just want to share with everybody that San Diego is absolutely on board for its electric and all of the technologies that we've heard today. It's a place that's very open-minded, and we have a very forward-thinking county set of supervisors, and we have a state, and I consider California a nation state. So we're just going to continue to move forward in spite of the political headwinds that we're experiencing. So our last innovator to address this question in terms of a more traditional renewable energy company, Hans, what have you done inside of your company to create innovation, and share that with us?
Sure. Thanks, Elaine, for having me on the panel. I appreciate that. And thanks for Zach for doing this. Just a reminder then who we are. Shafin talked a bit about that, but we develop renewable energy projects. And at the end of the day, we sell investment in these projects to institutional investors. So we don't develop specific technologies. We utilize technology to kind of achieve our objectives. We are active in the US, we're active in Nordics, and we're about to enter a new market soon. In the US, we're California, Nevada, Arizona, Illinois, and slowly spreading across other places. To me, innovation is, and as Shafin said there, I've been doing this for a little bit of time, and to me, innovation is to fail, in a way, to fail, and you just have to win or succeed more often than you fail. Then you have innovated. So to us, it's become innovation in the small, become like 1% better all the time. What we don't want to innovate is our people. We don't want to innovate out our people. The base for our business is the people. We want to create a strong team. We want to create a stable team with trust. That is the platform we're using to deal with change. Innovation to me is creativity paired with change. That is innovation. And so, as I said, we build physical infrastructure at large scale. It takes 5 years. It can take 10 years. It's a long process. When I started, things were easier. You could just go into the municipality and kind of get your building permit, and then if you got the cost to build was lower, it was just less complicated. So for us, it's become way more complicated the last 10 years. We have realized we can't do it all. We need to focus on where we can make a change. And so for us, innovation is about going from point A to point B as fast as we can with as little money as possible. What am I talking about? Like, we're developing projects, something physical that will be there. If it's a wind farm, they will spin. If it's a battery project, it will be constructed to dispatch power when needed. We need to identify the best places where to go and produce power or generate electricity as cheap as possible so that we can create value for our customers and for our shareholders. And we need to understand when to abort early. So if we're spending money on a project, how can we know that? How can we predict where to spend the money, resources, and time? Because time is finite. That's the most important commodity for us. So to talk a little bit about the aspects you talk about there, Lane, people. for us in the organization, we call it right person, right seat. It's critical to have the right person in the right seat to get where we want to go. We measure performance of people. We create very specific accountability charts. Is everyone owning in the company? What is their specific role? We put an emphasis on culture. What sort of behaviors do we want to foster to get where we want to be? We measure those are like 50-50 in our company. That's very important for us. On innovation on process is another area. Like, in what order are we doing things? It is like, think about you're going on a winter. I said it many times before, but you're like, winter coming up, you're going to go skiing. You have summer tires on your car. You're going to go ski for 1 week. You want to put your winter tires on the day before you go skiing, not the day after if it's a snowy road. Like, the order you do things makes a heck of a difference. So for us, it is about innovating the process of how we're doing it, in what order we're doing it. And so you might think that innovation goes, you're thinking about AI, EV, the stuff we're talking about, hydrogen, nanotech, robots, spaceships, all those kind of things. And it's higher likelihood that those fail. For us, it is innovation to change to win. For me, it is about creating a business that creates value for everyone around us, and finding smart ways to kind of stay in your lane. No pun intended. Smart ways to understand everyone else around you so that you can get through with what you want to do. Collecting data, we're using AI, we're using different technologies to sort out where to go and understand our counterparties. Smart ways to like find your ways to have your people love what they do. I mean, it might sound cynical, but it's so important. People is everything. Like, I want to create an environment where people love what they do. I want to create a joyful ride for people, in the company, and innovate the way we treat our people, and just kind of finding smart ways around maneuvering. So those are a few words about innovation for us. So we let other people innovate technology, like coming up with these fancy chargers, or innovate the lithium like chemistry, or how to recycle a wind turbine blade. Like, I care about that. I'm going to pick the best things for creating what we want to create, and putting all together to as Shapen said, to execute on it, like bring it together so that we can build this physical infrastructure, and at the end of the day, put more green power into the grid and like make money while doing that. So that's kind of innovation for me and our company. And we take small baby steps all the time to kind of become better. And we fail, sometimes we don't make the right call. But as long as we are making the right call more often than a wrong call, then we're gonna win. And that's what we're here to do. So
thank you. I think, Hans, where the term that you really want to use is that you are an innovation integrator. You are integrating innovations across the value chain, and that's a wonderful thing to do. Tia, there's a question for you that I want to combine, and that is, how many chargers can be added to a building, and can that building be in a workplace, for example, to allow for charging during the day?
Absolutely. We're designed to be a level 2 charger, so you can get a full battery in about 6 hours. So that can be a daytime charge at a workplace or an overnight charge. Just, holistically, even though we never have to work with utilities try to favor us because we're encouraging the behavior of overnight charging when peak demand is lowest, but we can absolutely also accommodate daytime charging as well. In terms of how many chargers the building can accommodate, would be based on the spare capacity in that particular building. And so far, rule of thumb in the different buildings that we've worked with in different cities, it's anywhere between 1 and 5 chargers based on the capacity of that particular building. Basically, if you go into your basement, it's how many slots do you have open on that panel. Also, buildings can do upgrades, but that's not within our business purview, but they can always add in more power capacity, and then we can put more chargers again adjacent on curbside.
Good. Karen, what is the future looking like for Elon Road in Sweden and in other countries?
Yeah, thanks. And I think there won't be like one solution. I think when we look at charging or transfer of energy, it will be a patchwork of, every time a vehicle stands still, if we can get the opportunity to transfer energy, we should do that. But it's all about, taking the opportunity in time. And for me, the vision is that if we have renewables, sun and wind that generate energy during the day, and you could see that vehicles could harvest the renewable energy by perhaps charging at work or charging on their way to work. And then we could have vehicles as, rolling energy storage. So that is the end vision. And I think tomorrow, actually, I'm going to Singapore. And Southeast Asia is a really interesting market for electrification, especially where you have really big cities, densely populated, where land is scarce. So why should you allocate specific place where real estate is so expensive? Then why not upgrade existing infrastructure like the roads to charging assets? So it's about utilizing existing and leverage on existing infrastructure. But of course, our solution, electrical roads, there's other providers as well, benefits where it's high density and different users to accommodate that. To also what we call have frequent charging. So if you can charge more often, it's not like the same logic. I mean, we've had a diesel tank or a petrol tank, and we have the behavior of running it till it's empty, and then we refill it. And now we're taking out the tank and putting a battery, but to some extent we're just copying the same behavior. And as Taya was before, it's a lot about changing behavior. So we can see that a huge interest of this kind of adding or enhanced charging, dynamic charging in Europe and in Southeast Asia. And we are also looking in specific applications in the US. So Port of Long Beach and Port of Los Angeles for the internal, container handling equipment, where you work in shift and you want to deploy your vehicles as much as possible. Just adding the possibility to transfer energy during operations means a lot of reducing CapEx and CO2 emissions.
Fascinating. Yeah, that's a very, very exciting prospect in Long Beach. We plan on seeing you there shortly.
Definitely.
I just want to turn to Hans and Atiya, being that you both work directly here in the US. Obviously, we have to be realistic about the fact that we have now a financial headwind, and that financial headwind is a result of a policy headwind. And we don't know exactly what the consequence of that is today. How are you thinking about mitigating that in the short and medium term? Just what your thoughts are on that.
Who starts?
Go ahead, Hans.
Go ahead, Hans.
Well, to me, first off, we don't know exactly what policies will be changed yet. So we have to adopt to that when change happens. I think in general, we have to, as Chapin showed, like regardless whether it's been Republican or Democratic administration, it has renewables as an industry have grown there might be a harder sorting out of projects, like we need to rank them tougher. There might be certain areas we would avoid, certain geographic regions that we would avoid to go into. I think personally, and I said this, I think I was cited in Dagens Industry many years ago when Trump became president, and I think like the Republican the administration forces innovation more. Sometimes these tax credits are creating a way where we are just becoming more sloppy because the pie has become bigger. That is true. And we become more lenient and more sloppy in everything we do. And honestly, we become ineffective by doing that. So I think once in a while, it's good with a shakeup where we're gonna like stress test our business model, our projects. What are we doing? I've been through all like working in different countries for a while, and like we see way longer. Like a project for us can take 8 to 10 years to do. Like I cannot be dependent on a president, and like I cannot be so short-minded. So for us, it is going to lead to, just reviewing our entire business and then like see where the chips fall, and like take it from there. But I'm not sweating this myself, honestly.
Good. Tia, what's your thought?
As a woman in the United States, I am sweating this quite hard. So I feel that we actually aren't dealing with Democrats and Republicans in the traditional sense, that we're dealing with a very hostile administration that uses talking points to create an agenda. So again, I go back to where I previously stood, that we really want to look at private sector solutions and helping states and cities meet goals and to move forward progress on those levels of scale as opposed to on a national level. The rest of the world is not changing course. So even though we'll be probably, I imagine, pulling back from the Paris Accord, we can still try and keep pace through leadership on smaller state-by-state levels.
Good. We have one last question, and this is going to wrap up the panel. Shell has launched an e-charging network. Do you see other gas stations and other players in that industry to follow suit?
Yeah, they have incentives to basically show these conversions. Shell has acquired a number of sort of early stage startups. Unfortunately, what happens is I have anecdotally seen that a lot of those acquisitions are then shelved and not actually expanded. But it's not a zero-sum game. Any incremental advances we can make are better. We're never going to be in a position where we have a unified national network at this point in time. So again, looking at how we can solve problems on smaller levels, and if it comes from support from some level of concession from traditionally oil and gas-based companies, then again, incremental progress is better than no progress at all, and I support that.
Yes, I do too. Well, good. Well, listen, I want to thank you all immensely for being a part of this. It was just amazing to have you on as panelists. It was amazing to be a part of the Green Connections Conference. I want to thank all of the staff, the intern, helped to make this possible. Emil, the sponsors, everyone. This was a great conference, a great way to end it off. I'm going to hand it back over to Emil, and we're going to wrap up the conference.
Okay, thank you very much, Lane, for moderating the panel, and thank you very much, Karin, Hans Christian, and Tia. As Lane said, we have now reached the end of Green Connections 2024. This morning or evening, we've had the privilege of hearing from 7 brilliant innovators and a brilliant panel who share their technologies, thoughts, and progress, all aimed at tackling one of the most urgent challenges of our time, transitioning our society away from fossil fuel dependency. So again, a heartfelt thank you to our speakers for their insights and to our sponsors for making Green Connections possible once again. We're deeply grateful for your unwavering support and dedication. And I would also like to extend a very special thank you to the Chamber's exceptional interns, Ida, Filippa, and of course, Aline. You have been the driving force behind this conference. Your hard work and dedication have truly made it a great success. So thank you very much. And as a final remark that I want to leave you with, Green Connections is about building meaningful connections among innovators, businesses, and change makers committed to a clean economy. So as you leave here today, I encourage you to connect with one another. Connect on LinkedIn, and if there is someone you can't find on LinkedIn, please feel free to send an email to the Chamber and ask for the person's contact info. So in conclusion, thank you all very much for attending. I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful night or a very good afternoon. Goodbye.